Okay, so we are now ready to solve the exercises. The first one tells us to show that the intersection of any two subgroups of a group is a subgroup. Okay, so let us see. Its solution is really very easy. So we have to show that if H and K are subgroups of G, then their intersection is a subgroup of G. So first of all, we have to make sure that this is a non-empty subset of G. It's already a subset of G that we know because these are subgroups of G. So individually they are subsets of G. So their intersection is also a subset of G, but we now have to make sure that this intersection is non-empty. Since the identity element belongs to both H and K, so it belongs to their intersection because H and K are subgroups. So we have H intersection K non-empty. So now we can verify whether it's a subgroup or not. To see that it's a subgroup, we should show that it is closed under the operation on G, and any element in this intersection also has its inverse in the intersection. Okay, so we consider two elements. Let X and Y be two elements in the intersection. Then X and Y belong to H and they also belong to K. Since H, K are subgroups of G, we have, so XY should belong to H, as should X inverse, because H is a subgroup of G. Like that, K is also a subgroup of G, so XY should belong to K and X inverse should belong to K. This implies XY belongs to both H and K, so it belongs to their intersection. And just like that, X inverse also, being both in H and K, will be in their intersection. Hence, the intersection is a subgroup of G. The solution actually ends here. However, the author has asked us to ascertain whether the same proof shows that the intersection of not just two subgroups but any number of subgroups of G, finite or infinite, is also a subgroup of G. To see that that is the case, you just we are ending the solution here itself. However, for the general one, what you do, you consider a collection of subgroups of G, which is a non-empty collection whose elements are subgroups of G. This collection has at least one subgroup of G, and it's not necessarily the collection of all subgroups of G. That we are not taking. It's just any non-empty collection of subgroups of G. Then you consider the intersection of all the subgroups in this collection. You now want to prove that B is a subgroup of G, just like how we proved here H intersection K is a subgroup of G. So the first thing to see is that B is non-empty. So because E belongs to H, for all H belonging to A, because all such H's are subgroups, so that's why E belongs to B. So that's why B is non-empty. B is a non-empty subset of G. Then next you take two elements in B, then this will imply that they belong to H for all H belonging to A by the definition of this intersection. Since every such H is a subgroup, we are applying that same argument. So both xy and x inverse belong to H for all H belonging to A, which implies xy and x inverse both belong to the intersection of all such H's, that is B, and that's why B is a subgroup of G. So yes, although not exactly the same proof shows that this is the case, but a similar one. Okay, let us now look at the second exercise. So we now know, and which we have been telling for quite a while, that if we take intersections of subgroups in a group, then we keep getting subgroups. So that we now have that fact proved. The next one is this: let G be a group such that the intersection of all its subgroups which are different from this trivial group is a subgroup different from the trivial group. Prove that every element of G has finite order. So here in the second one, what we are doing, we are considering all subgroups of G except this one, and we are taking their intersection. By the previous exercise, we already know that this intersection will be a subgroup. However, additionally what is given is that this subgroup is different from the trivial group. Then we have to prove that every element of G has finite order, which clearly is not necessary. In any group, any element need not be of finite order. For example, if you look at the additive group of integers, there the only element of finite order is the identity element, which is 0, the integer 0. That is the only element we know in any group for certain that is of finite order, and it has order 1, the smallest possible order. Any other element we don't really know, it depends on the group. For example, here the integer 1, is it of finite order? If it is of finite order, then there will be a positive integer m for which this integral power calculated in this group should be equal to the identity element 0. Now from the definition of this integral power, it is what? 1 times 1 times 1 m times. However, we have to keep in mind that the binary operation here is addition. So actually this is nothing but 1 plus 1 plus 1 m1s. So that gives us m. If this is to be equal to 0, then m itself should be 0. So but then m cannot be positive. and that's why no such positive integer m exists for which this equation is true in this group. So 1 is of infinite order, 1 cannot have finite order. So it's not necessary that whatever group we consider and whatever element we consider in it, that has to have finite order. No, that's not the case. So this is a non-trivial problem. So let's see how we can solve this. On the surface, immediately we don't see any connection between this intersection being not equal to the trivial group and the group has all of its elements of finite order. Apparently there is no connection on the surface, but we will let us see how we can prove this. Okay, so we start with this intersection that we are talking about. Let H be the intersection of all the subgroups of G which are different from the trivial group, and we are given that this H is different from the trivial group itself. That H is not equal to the trivial group. That means H has at least one non-identity element. So let us choose one such element. Choose an element, say B, not equal to E in H. Since b to the power I belongs to H for all integers I, and that is because H is a subgroup of G, so H is closed under the operation on G. So because B is in H, so all of its integral powers will also be in H, but the collection of all such integral powers by definition is what? That is the cyclic subgroup generated by B. So we have the cyclic subgroup generated by B contained in H. It should be contained in H. Now B itself is an integral power of B, and as such it will belong to the cyclic subgroup generated by B, and B is not equal to identity. So this cyclic subgroup generated by B cannot be the trivial group, which has only the identity element, and hence this is not equal to the trivial group. Now what can we conclude from this? Note that this cyclic group is now a subgroup of G different from the identity, different from the trivial group, and the intersection of all such subgroups is H. So H should be contained in this cyclic subgroup. This implies H is contained in this cyclic subgroup. Now we can combine these two containment relations. Hence, H is equal to the cyclic subgroup generated by B. Okay. Now, before proving, what is our aim? Our aim is to prove that every element of G has finite order. Before going to that general proof, we now want to prove that B itself, that particular element B, has finite order, and the strategy for, or the way of proving that, is by contradiction. So we are going to suppose that B has infinite order and try to arrive at a contradiction. Suppose B is of infinite order. Okay. Note that we let this supposition be like this, and now we do something else. We are going to contradict this one. Now we note something else. Note that this is contained in the cyclic subgroup generated by B square, which itself is contained in the cyclic subgroup generated by B. The first containment is clear because this is contained in every subgroup. In particular, it's also contained in this cyclic subgroup. However, what about the second containment? How does a general element in this cyclic subgroup look? It is an integral power of B square. Okay, because it is being generated by B square, where I is an integer. By one of the rules of exponent, this is equal to B to the power 2i. So we see that every integral power of B square is after all an integral power of B, because 2i is also an integer, and by definition of this group, this belongs to this. Hence, every element in this group is in this group, and that's why we have this second containment. And this, in concluding these relations, we have not used this supposition, but now because of our supposition we will get something extra, namely that these containments are proper inclusions. This is properly contained in B square, and B square is properly contained in B. In other words, we are now going to show that we cannot have equalities here. Okay. That, however, we have to prove, and that proof also is by contradiction. So again we are going to suppose that this is equal to B square. Now things may be confusing at this stage about the structure of the proof. We have done something till this stage, and then we have supposed something which we have to contradict. But before finishing that, inside that, under that supposition, we are again proving something else by contradiction. So we have to, it's like starting a bracket, and then inside that you are starting another bracket. Unless you close the inner one, you cannot close the outer one. So you have to first of all deal with this one, get the contradiction, get whatever conclusion you want, and then you have to somehow arrange for contradicting the original supposition. So we are going to do just that. Okay, so now we have supposed this one. Since B square itself belongs to the cyclic subgroup generated by B square, much like how B belongs to B. So B square will also belong to this group, which means B square should be equal to E. We have B square equal to E. but this implies that B is of finite order. Why? Because you see, there is this equation where we have a positive integer for which this equation is true. So order of B has to be finite. Order of B in fact will be either 1 or 2, and this contradicts our first supposition. Under that first supposition we are doing all these things, no? So that has been contradicted. So our second supposition must be wrong. You see, when we are proving something by contradiction, supposing whatever exactly what we don't want, we want to cling to that supposition, and we will let go of it only when we are forced to let go of it. So now our point of view is that this supposition is correct, and under that what is happening to this supposition, that has led us to something wrong. Wrong in the sense that we are clinging to this supposition. So that survives. We now conclude that the second supposition is wrong based on the assumption that the first supposition is true. So we can't have this is equal to B square. Similarly, now we are going to prove that here also we cannot have equality, again by supposing exactly the opposite. Suppose next that this is equal to B. Since B belongs to B, we have B belongs to B square, because they are now equal, and hence B being an element of this cyclic subgroup should be an integral power of B square. B is equal to B square to the power I for some integer I. Okay. Now what do we get from this equation? If you apply one of the rules of exponent, you will get B equal to B to the power 2I. From there you will get these two things. This implies B to the power 2I minus 1 equal to identity, and B to the power 1 minus 2I is also equal to identity. You write this one as B is equal to B to the power 2I, multiply both sides by B inverse, you get this one. Whereas if you multiply both sides by B to the power minus 2I, you will get this one. Hence, since we have both of them to be true, so B to the power absolute value of 2I minus 1 equal to identity. Now look at the quantity 2I minus 1. What is I? I is an integer, so 2i minus 1 is also an integer. However, 2i minus 1 cannot be equal to 0. Why? Because 0 is an even integer and 2i minus 1, because of its form, it is odd. Since 2i minus 1 is not equal to 0, its absolute value is a positive integer. Now we are in a position just like this one. We have an equation that looks like this one, where in place of 2 we now have this positive integer. The fact that it's a positive integer again makes us conclude that b is of finite order. But then b is of finite order which contradicts our first supposition. So we cannot have this one either. Where is it? This one. So we cannot have this either. So what do we have now? Combining these relations and also the facts that neither this is true nor this is true. We thus have this. This is a proper subgroup of the cyclic subgroup generated by B square, which in turn is a proper subgroup of the cyclic subgroup generated by B. And according to what we already have, this is nothing but H. Okay. Now look at this. You consider this subgroup generated by B square. It's a subgroup which is different from the trivial group, and H is the intersection of all such subgroups. So H should be a subgroup of B square, just like here H is a subgroup of B. Since this is properly contained in B square, we should have H contained in the cyclic subgroup generated by B square. But this contradicts this relation. But that contradicts this proper inclusion. This one says that B square is properly included in, properly contained in H. It is inside H and there is something else in H which is not in B square. However, this one says that everything in H must be in B square. So they are contradictory together. So now we have run out of options. We can no longer cling to our original supposition because all the roads have come to dead ends. So our first supposition is wrong. That is, B must be of finite order. Okay, however, the solution is not over. We have only shown that B is of finite order. We in general have to show that every element in G is of finite order. Since the identity element already is of finite order, namely 1, its order is 1. So it's enough to consider only non-identity elements. Now, let A not equal to B be any element of G. Okay, we now have to somehow use this information or whatever we have proved to show that A has finite order. Since A belongs to the cyclic subgroup generated by A, we have this. So again, the cyclic subgroup generated by A is a subgroup of G that is different from the trivial group. So the intersection of all such subgroups, which is H, must be contained in A. Thus, H must be contained in A. But H is nothing but the cyclic subgroup generated by B, which contains the element B, which implies B must belong to this. Okay. Now B belonging to this means B should be an integral multiple of A. So B is equal to A to the power K for some integer K. Can we say something more about K? Note that since B is not equal to the identity element, keep in mind our choice of B. B was any non-identity element in that intersection H. So since B is not equal to identity, K must be non-zero. Otherwise, if K is 0, by definition A to the power 0 will be identity, contradicting this choice of B. Okay, so now K is non-zero. We now have B, not B, it will start with A. Let me write like this: A to the power K times order of B. Since we have already proved that B is of finite order, this order of B is a positive integer and K is a non-zero integer. So this is an integral power of A, which is well defined. By one of the rules of exponent, this is nothing but A to the power K whole to the power order of B. But A to the power K is B, so B to the power order of B, and this is nothing but E. We now have this, and hence if we take inverse on both sides, we will also get this. Thus, it's so here we are trying to get a situation like this one where we can use absolute value. Thus a to the power absolute value of k times order of b. Now order of b is already a positive integer. K is something we don't know. It may either be positive or negative. However, it's not equal to 0. So it's enough to consider the absolute value of k only multiplied by order of b is equal to identity. Now look at this equation and look at the exponent. Since k is non-zero, so its absolute value is a positive integer. Order of b is also a positive integer, so their product is a positive integer. Since this times order of b is a positive integer, we conclude that A is a finite order because one such equation is true. So you see how the condition that the intersection of all subgroups different from the trivial group is a subgroup different from the trivial group has led us to the conclusion that the group has all its elements of finite order. This is a strange conclusion, but an interesting one also, which is not immediately apparent. Okay, now next.